How do you really know when you're hungry? Hello, my name is Stephanie. I'm a therapist on Long Island, New York that specializes in the treatment of eating disorders and body image issues. And if you're interested in this video, at the end of the video, if you like it, please give it a thumbs up. If you're interested in this type of stuff, learning more about eating disorders, eating issues, body image issues, general mental health and well-being, and therapeutic tools that can help, please subscribe to my channel. I think that you will find it very helpful. So today I want to talk more about our hunger. So you heard me say a couple times on this channel about intuitive eating and how that's really the method of any type of healthy eating that I would recommend. Now, what we really have to do to understand this, because it's such a grand concept, we really need to break it down. And I know that when we're breaking it down, it might sound so elementary or so basic, but that's what we really need to do. We need to go back to basics. If you remember, and I've talked about this in another video, when we were babies, or if you know any babies, you know that they cry when they're hungry and they stop when they're full. And we are so disconnected from our roots. We're so disconnected from that. Let's go back to go to a different species. So animals, usually you could see if you have any house pets that they eat when they're hungry and they stop when they're full. So why is it so much more complicated for us? Why do we not follow those cues, or maybe we're ignoring those cues, or maybe we're just not even feeling those cues? So let's talk more about all of that. Obviously, if we're talking about intuitive eating, we need to know when we're hungry and when we're not. So why might we not really recognize when we're full or when we're hungry? It's because we constantly are ignoring those cues. We've grown up to ignore those cues. And there's a lot of different reasons for it. And not always is it such a horrible thing. Sometimes it really is just logistics and necessity. But our bodies get all out of whack with our schedules and with school. Like every year you have a different lunch period. Sometimes it's like in like morning, and other times it's, at the end of the day, and it just doesn't really jive well with our natural patterns. And then we have to somehow have snacks and dinner, and sometimes then we're studying too late and then you miss it, or you just are eating because you're stressed or whatever it is, and we're constantly ignoring it. So sometimes we're eating when we're not hungry. Sometimes we are not eating when we are hungry. And hey, that happens. It's okay sometimes that you're, eating past the point of fullness, or that you're eating when you're not hungry, or that, sometimes things happen and maybe you're hungry and you didn't get a chance to grab something and you're late for class. I mean, things happen. As long as it's not happening constantly, it's totally okay. So now back to intuitive eating. How do we intuitively eat if we don't know when we're hungry? Good point. We need to know when we're hungry and when we're not, and when we're full and when we're not. And then we also have to recognize that it's just not black and white. Sometimes you're not starving, which is on the one side of the hunger scale, and then on the other side you have like stuffed. There's a heck of a lot of stuff in the middle. And now we really need to get down to this. Now let's think about this. How do you then reconnect and figure out when you're hungry and when you're not? A hunger scale, of course. So a hunger scale is something that most nutritionists will work on with you if you are struggling with an eating disorder, because sometimes what happens when you do have an eating disorder, you actually do lose those cues. Like your body no longer is signaling to you, because it's kind of screwed up in a way, because you've done a lot of damage to it, that it's just all of a sudden not telling you anymore when you're hungry or when you're full. So by regulating your eating and maybe having a more structured meal plan, those cues typically do come back, but sometimes it takes a really long time, and sometimes they're really muted and you don't really hear them, or you don't really notice them. So it's really important in the work of recovery from an eating disorder, or even really anyone who is struggling with wanting to be more intuitively eating but doesn't really know where to start. This is a really great place. So now let's get back. What the hell is a hunger scale, right? So let's get back to what I was saying about how on one end you have like super, super duper full, and the other hand you have absolute starvation and you're so ravenous and ready to eat anything you can get your hands on. So a hunger scale may look different for everyone. Some people don't feel like, well, not every hunger scale fits for everyone. So some people may use a hunger scale that has words. So you might have on the, on the full end that you are super full, or you're stuffed, or whatever. Maybe a little bit less than that, you're full, or there's not much room left. And then maybe a little bit less than that, you're kind of neutral, like you're not really feeling anything. You're not stuffed, but you're not really hungry. And then you get to closer to being hungry, and then you're like, okay, I could deal with something right now. I'm wanting something, so I'm hungry. And then you get more hungry, and maybe you could say, starving, and then you get really more hungry, and maybe that on that scale is just like absolute ravenous. Basically meaning, again, you can eat anything you get your hands on. So we never want to get to either end of those spectrums. Not to say that sometimes that happens because, again, life, but more often than not, we want to avoid getting to any extremes. So typically, you really should be eating when you are in that hunger zone. But again, that's getting back a little off topic. What we're talking about is a hunger scale directly. So some people may use words to describe their hunger, fullness, type of sensations. Other people may use numbers, and sometimes it might be 1 to 10, 1 being, super duper hungry, 10 being super duper full, and you can kind of label it like that. Other people find that 10 just doesn't give justice to sometimes how full they feel, so they do it on a scale from 1 to 100, whatever. I mean, really, there's no right or wrong way to do it, and your nutritionist or your therapist can help you to decipher where you really need to be and, get you to that point. Another big thing that I want to point out is that hunger looks different for everyone. So I know a lot of people think that, you should feel it in your stomach. Typically you do in some way, shape, or form. But some people are also alerted to their hunger in ways that maybe might be headaches, or lightheadedness, and faintness, whatever. There's different things that different people feel when they're hungry. What's really important is to find out what it is for you, because then you can have a more of a guiding basis as to where you are on your hunger scale. Now, the next part is, okay, now you have all this information, what do you do with it? Log it, journal it. I talk so much about journaling and logging because that really is the only way we can look back and seeing patterns and all of that. So how might you log this? One, I would really encourage you to draw out your hunger scale, so you have a reference. You can print it out, you can do whatever, graphics, whatever the heck you want, make it yours. This is yours. Put it at the front of your journal. And then I really encourage every meal to, before the meal, to say where you are on the hunger scale. If you're really hungry, if you're not, or before really any time you eat. So again, this isn't always going to be the case for every single person, but this is a good guidance to get you started. So trying to do it more often than not when you're eating, trying to log it beforehand, and trying to log your hunger, if you really can kind of remember like where you are middle of the meal, and then after the meal. And you might even want to wait a few minutes after the meal to get your system to figure everything out, and then log your fullness at that point. Again, now that you have all this information, now that you logged all this information, what happens now? What do you get from it? Well, someone who is working with you, a therapist or a nutritionist, can really help you to identify patterns in it. But more often than not, you'll be able to see it as well. You might see that, and it changes for everyone. It's different for everyone. And it changes all the time, So let's say maybe on lunchtime, you're finding that you are just ravenous at that point. And of course, we don't want to get to that point of hunger. You want to eat more when you are hungry, but not where you're at a point that you're just feeling so sick or whatever hunger feels like for you, where it's too extreme. So you might find that every time at lunchtime before you eat, you are absolutely ravenous. So what can you learn from that? It sounds like somewhere between breakfast and if you had a snack that you didn't have enough somewhere, or maybe you need to eat lunch earlier. So there's different things that you can play with, and a person, if you're getting help from someone, especially if you're in eating disorder recovery, absolutely recommend that you're working with a therapist and a nutritionist that specializes in the treatment of eating disorders, and let them help you. But if you're just really trying to dabble with intuitive eating, looking for patterns in yourself, if someone else is interested in it as well, maybe you want to give them your journal and be like, hey, what do you see? Is there something that maybe I could adjust here, or that I'm noticing? Should I be eating somewhere different or more, or whatever? And it's going to help you to key more into your own body. And now, getting back to intuitiveness, it's not about logging, it's not about keeping great track of it all. It's just getting you back to the point where you can notice what you're feeling. And now that you're more, if you take a while to actually be noticing your hunger and your fullness and logging it, you're going to be much more astute to where your hunger is at any given point during the day. So ultimately, of course, you're not going to be logging it anymore. This is a temporary thing to get you more keyed back into your body, being more intuitive with your own body, getting back to the basics, because that's what you want to do. So I hope you liked this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my channel if you think that this could be helpful for you. Leave a comment down below what your thoughts are on intuitive eating, as well as if you have any requests for future videos. I'm definitely open for that. If you're more interested in learning other types of things about eating disorders and such, I do also offer a blog, and I will leave a link in the description below for that. Feel free to check it out. And thank you for joining me for today, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye.